My name is Jaylani, and I live with my husband, Theodore. We run a restaurant called Sunflower, which my grandfather took care of for many years. It's a popular place with many regular customers who have loved it for a long time. Sadly, my grandfather had cancer but didn't let it stop him from working at Sunflower. Even when he was very sick, he served delicious food and smiled while chatting with the customers. Surrounded by family, he passed away peacefully. He left me, his granddaughter, in charge of the restaurant. Knowing his time was near, he wrote a will with clear instructions about what to do with the restaurant. After my grandfather's passing, I decided to take over Sunflower. Fortunately, the customers kept coming, and the employees continued to work hard. I had watched my grandfather cook all my life, so I felt confident I could make the same tasty dishes. The regulars were happy and told me, "This tastes just like your grandfather's cooking. It feels like he's still here." Sunflower was doing well, just like when my grandfather was alive, and I was more motivated than ever. However, since my grandfather died, my husband began to feel unhappy. He thought a man should own the restaurant and didn't understand why it was in my name. I told him, "I'm his granddaughter, so it belongs to me. We're running it together, so it doesn't really matter." It seemed my husband wanted to be the owner himself and sometimes expressed his frustration, but I was the one who cooked, while he handled the cash register, deliveries, and shopping. I felt that an owner who couldn't cook didn't really fit. I could have been more flexible, but I didn't want to go against my grandfather's wishes. One busy day at the restaurant, my husband's younger brother visited. He hadn't been around for a while and was known to be a bit of a troublemaker. He had left last year to find a job but came back after quitting. My husband was happy to see him, but I found him hard to deal with. In our hometown, I heard that an old man had passed away, and my brother-in-law joked, "So, your wife is running the shop now? That's hilarious." He laughed loudly, not noticing the annoyed looks from the customers. I found it hard to engage with him and decided to ignore his comments since we were family. He then asked if his meal was free, saying, "Since we're family, right?" I reluctantly agreed, and he ate a huge meal, drank beer, and left without paying. That's how unreasonable he was. Our relatives came to the restaurant too, but they always paid. I told my husband, "It's not fair to let only your brother eat for free. Please charge him next time." My husband responded, "It's fine. He doesn't have money. It's okay to give him a break." He seemed to side with his brother. After that, my brother-in-law came to the restaurant regularly and ate without paying every time. I warned my husband, but he wouldn't listen. My insistence made my husband grumpy, and we started to argue more. My brother-in-law began visiting even more often, and each time, he whispered with my husband in the back of the kitchen. I suspected they were talking badly about me. I tried to focus on my cooking while stealing glances at them. One day, my brother-in-law said to my husband, "Can't we make this restaurant yours, bro? The name is in your wife's name, but it's in a good location with many customers. Let's make it your restaurant and keep all the profits. It must be hard being under your wife's thumb." My brother-in-law was trying to take advantage of the problems in our marriage to get my husband on his side. They started plotting something together. The next day was our restaurant's day off, and my husband left early, leaving me alone. Even though it was my day off, I remembered that the kitchen was messy, so I decided to go to the restaurant and spend the day cleaning up. While cleaning, I tried to open the restaurant door and found it unlocked. I thought I must have forgotten to lock it the day before, so I hurried inside. To my surprise, I found my husband and brother-in-law there. "Oh, you're here. I didn't expect to see you both since it's our day off. What are you doing?" I asked. They smirked as if they were hiding something. "Actually, we need to talk," my husband said. "Since you took over the restaurant, you've been acting too proud, and it's bothering us." "I'm not being proud," I replied, feeling frustrated. "Yes, you are," my brother-in-law chimed in. "You're happy because the restaurant is doing well." "What are you trying to say?" I asked, feeling confused. They spoke to me like they were mocking me, which only made me angrier. Then, my husband pulled out some documents and spread them on the table. "I'm sick of your attitude. Let's get a divorce," he said, surprising me with a filled-out divorce application. "Huh? What do you mean?" I stammered, unable to understand what was happening. My first thought was about the restaurant. I knew it would be hard to run it alone after a divorce, especially with only a few employees. "This is too sudden. I don't understand," I exclaimed. "It would be hard for me to keep the restaurant running alone." "We're going to buy this restaurant from you and start fresh," my husband said. "We want you to leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This restaurant was protected by my grandfather. The profits are good enough. We should keep running it for the customers. So, you don't plan to grow? This restaurant will go out of business if you don't do something. I want to start a new restaurant, no matter what, he insisted. I realized my husband had been influenced by his brother. Well, we'll buy this restaurant for whatever price you want, my brother-in-law said. We'll earn it back quickly, so any price is fine. I couldn't stand their bullying any longer. All right, if that's the case, I'll sell it for $50,000, but please wait for 2 weeks while I prepare the divorce papers and the contract. And during those 2 weeks, neither of you should come to the restaurant. When I said I was selling the restaurant, they were excited, not realizing I had my own reasons. In the meantime, I managed to run the restaurant by myself. Where's your husband? A customer asked. Well, we're actually getting a divorce, I replied. What, so suddenly? Will you be running Sunflower alone then? No, my husband is buying the restaurant, and I'll be leaving in 2 weeks. The customers were surprised and genuinely disappointed when they heard the news, but I quickly handed out flyers I had prepared, which calmed their worries. 2 weeks later, I presented the contract to sell the restaurant and the divorce papers to my husband. There are no complaints about this, right? I asked as he signed the contract. $50,000, huh? I'll transfer the money to your account right now, he replied, sounding pleased. Now this is my shop, he said, looking happy alongside his brother. While they celebrated, I packed up my things and left the restaurant. I was excited to see what they would do next. My ex-husband and brother-in-law immediately took over running the restaurant. We've explained the situation to the employees, they said. Even without Jaylani, the shop should run fine. All right, let's make some money. They prepared enthusiastically for the day, but when 10 o'clock came, the usual opening time, things didn't go as planned. Why aren't the customers coming? My ex-husband wondered. The usual crowd was missing, and the employees, who were always reliable, weren't there either. He tried calling them, but no one answered. They had never faced this situation before, and panic set in. My ex-husband noticed a regular customer walking by and called out, "Hey, you're our customer, right?" Yeah, I've been worried because you haven't opened yet. What's going on?" the customer replied. "Come on in," my ex-husband urged, trying to sound welcoming. "Didn't you say your wife quit?" "I came here for her cooking, so I might not come anymore," the customer said. "Don't say that. We'll definitely serve something delicious," he insisted, forcing the customer to step inside. The customer reluctantly entered and looked at the menu. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "Since I'm the owner now, I decided to change the menu completely," my ex-husband said. The traditional sunflower set meals were gone, replaced by items with foreign names that were hard to understand, which made the customer less enthusiastic. "I'll have this steak," the customer finally decided. Understood. My ex-husband and brother-in-law started cooking with excitement. The customer, who had never seen my ex-husband cook before, waited anxiously. "Hey, is it ready yet?" the customer asked after a long wait. "Sorry for the wait," my ex-husband replied. Finally, after 40 minutes, the meal was ready. When the steak was served, the customer was shocked. There were only 3 small pieces of meat on the plate. The outside was burnt, and the inside was raw. There was no sauce, just a bowl of bread and soup. "We used high-quality ingredients," my ex-husband explained, "so we only used salt and pepper for seasoning. We cooked it to bring out the aroma on the outside and enjoy the rare inside." The customer didn't touch the steak, which looked like a failed dish at first glance. Upon closer inspection, the soup seemed to be instant. "I'm sorry, but I can't eat this," the unhappy customer said, standing up to leave. My ex-husband was shocked that not a single bite was taken. "Customer, you still have to pay. That will be $30, he demanded. $30? You're joking. I can't pay for this awful meal," the furious customer shouted before storming out of the restaurant. My ex-husband and his brother were stunned by what had just happened. They quickly realized they were in trouble. Neither my ex-husband, who rarely cooked, nor his freeloading brother could run a restaurant successfully. They should have known better, but they were too focused on making money. From that point on, no customers came to Sunflower under their management. Meanwhile, I had started a new restaurant in a different location, called Sunflower 2. The employees from the original Sunflower joined me. This new shop was also inherited from my grandfather. He had worried about the aging Sunflower and had planned to build a new place in a different location. He wanted to announce the new restaurant once it was finished, but he passed away before it was completed. Now, it was entrusted to me. I hadn't told my ex-husband about this new restaurant during the 2 weeks I handed over Sunflower. I promoted Sunflower too, and many regular customers who wanted to eat my food followed me. Thanks to that, the restaurant was busy right from the start. With the $50,000 I received from my ex-husband, I was able to hire a few part-time workers and increase salaries. I began offering my original dishes and created menus for younger people, including baby food for small children. This attracted a lot of attention and brought in more families. While keeping my grandfather's flavors, I was growing the restaurant to fit modern tastes. The daily hustle gave me a sense of fulfillment. Meanwhile, my ex-husband and his brother were struggling at the old Sunflower. They had borrowed a large amount of money to pay me $50,000 and were now receiving demand letters. "What are we going to do about this?" my ex-husband said, panicking. "You're the one who suggested this, so figure it out," his brother complained, holding his head in his hands. Then, he had an idea. "I've got a great plan," he exclaimed. Suddenly, the two of them showed up at my busy restaurant during lunchtime. "Jaylani, please help us," my brother-in-law shouted loudly, despite the packed restaurant. "My brother hurt his arm and can't cook anymore. We'll give the old restaurant back. Could you return the money as well? You took over the old restaurant and signed the contract. You need to take responsibility and make it work." I brushed off his plea and turned to return to my work when my ex-husband appeared behind him, looking pained. "Jaylani," he began, thinking my ex-husband was being overly dramatic. I was about to turn back to the kitchen when the restaurant became noisy. "Whoa, what's that? Looks painful. Is he okay?" I heard customers whispering. I turned to see my ex-husband, and I was shocked to see his fist covered in a large bruise. "Are you really injured?" I asked. "That's what I've been saying," he replied. "Then go to the hospital right now," I said, quickly calling a taxi to send him. During my lunch break, I went to the hospital to check on him. When I arrived, he was just coming out, apparently finished with his examination. As I tried to ask what had happened, he and his brother avoided my gaze and hurried off. Their behavior made me suspicious, so I went to the hospital reception. "Excuse me, I'm looking for a man named Theodore. He was here for an examination," I said. "Please wait a moment," the receptionist replied, checking the records, but she looked puzzled. "There's no record of such a consultation. Perhaps he went to a different hospital," she said. Realizing my ex-husband hadn't received any examination, I remembered how quickly they had run away and felt they were hiding something. I quickly set off to pursue them. A few minutes later, I spotted my ex-husband and brother-in-law walking. I stopped the car, grabbed my ex-husband's arm, and called out to him. "I knew it. The bruise is gone," I exclaimed. They tried to run, but I used all my strength to stop them. Seeing my angry expression, they quickly calmed down. "Why is the bruise gone? You weren't injured after all," I asked. "Running a restaurant is hard," my ex-husband admitted. "Old Sunflower hardly gets any customers, so we can't make money to pay back our debts. That's why I pretended to be injured and said I couldn't continue with the restaurant. I thought I could get some money back." "You were trying to deceive me with such a childish lie," I replied, letting go of them. "Don't involve me in your affairs from now on. You two figure out what to do with that restaurant." I got back in my car and returned to my restaurant. Through the mirror, I could see them hanging their heads in shame, and it made me feel a bit sorry for them. After that, they quickly put Sunflower up for sale. I think they made that decision to repay their debts, but due to the building's age, they struggled to find a buyer. They received a flood of debt collection letters and were working around the clock. It seemed this life suited them, having thrown away something precious because of their greed. As for me, my newly renovated restaurant was thriving even more than before, with sales doubling. One of my regular customers offered to apprentice with me, so now I have a disciple. I often remind him that running a restaurant is not as easy as my ex-husband thought. I want to continue carrying on my grandfather's legacy for the foreseeable future.